Knowles on the news. Susan Knowles.
Well, it's another wonderful day in the neighborhood if you're in Missouri, at the University of Missouri. What a great place to be this time of year. Or at least maybe it used to be, but not anymore. And why is that? Well, I'm sure you've heard in the news all that's going on at the University of Missouri. You're almost speechless when you have to talk about it because it's just so over the top, unreasonable, and probably backed by a lot of money somewhere. But as you may recall, if you've heard the stories, black protesters are saying that, first of all, there was a swastika smeared in, I'll just say it, poop on the campus. There were racial slurs going on the campus that weren't being addressed by the president to the satisfaction of the black students on campus. And as you may recall, there was a young man, I'll just call him the poor little rich kid, who basically started a hunger strike. Because I'm sure he'd seen that someplace, somebody in somewhere had started a hunger strike, and he thought, I'll just copy that. That looks so cool. But anyway, he turns out that this young man, this poor guy, has a father who made $8.4 million last year. That's why I call him the poor little rich kid. And as it turns out, there is absolutely no evidence that there was ever a poop swastika on campus. In addition to that, the student body president, a young black man, made up lies about the KKK being on campus. Now, he's admitted that he lied, but as far as I know, he's still the student body president. And as you may recall, there was a professor the other day by the last name of Click. I think her name was Melissa Click. And she had a courtesy appointment with the school in the journalism department, I believe. And she was incensed. She's a white woman, and she was incensed when an Asian photographer, and I think the other guy was a white guy, doesn't really matter, but came to the protest to film what was going on and to maybe ask people questions about, why are you here? How come you're not in class? Oh, there's a question. How much are your parents paying for tuition that you're not utilizing by being out here with some political cause? Questions like that. She didn't like that, and she wanted that person gone. And when those people refused to leave, she's the one that said, hey, I need some muscle over here. Oh, boy. Maybe she was a bartender at one time or had a bouncer. Maybe she was the bouncer. I don't know. And so it's like, I need some muscle. I need some backup. Get these people out of here. Maybe she should have called on Arnold Schwarzenegger. But in any event, she's so apologetic now. I mean, as you might understand, she's seen the light. And she really did the right thing. She gave up her courtesy appointment. But the problem is she still is an assistant professor at the school. So like any good left-wing progressive, she's not going to take money out of her pocket. I mean, it's not like she's going to quit her job that she earns money at some liberal school. Oh, no. We're going to just give up our courtesy appointment. And it was so good because one of the photographers that she tried to grab his camera out of his hand, supposedly, according to the report, and I think you can see it on the video, he met with her, and she apologized. I'm so sorry. And he came out of the meeting saying, you know what, I don't think her apology is genuine. Oh, really? Now, there's one guy at the school that needs a scholarship because he's the smartest one there. And so when she apologized, I forgot to tell you this, there were some reservations on that apology some conditions because, see, she felt threatened by that same photographer. I guess he had a big camera, so that threatened her. Another woman in the video who was a staffer at the school and that described herself as, I think she said something like protester or something, 1950. I'm 1950. Oh, God. So I think she was let go. I don't know why she was let go over the Click woman. But it's just getting more and more bizarre because now, remember in Baltimore when the mayor said, we just need to give the rioters space. We just give them space to destroy. Well, these you have to hand it to them. These kids at the University of Missouri have now created a black spiritual space. And they're not allowing anyone else in, white, Asian, Hispanic. You're not allowed because we need our own spiritual space and you're not invited. And of course, this won't be seen as racism, which was supposedly the problem in the very beginning. This is not seen as racism because, see, these people are black, so you can't be a racist if you're black. Everybody knows that. And it's so funny because if you had suggested that they do that, let's say you're a white person, Asian or Hispanic, and you suggested, hey, why don't you get your own group over there? Why don't you stay in your own little spiritual space? Oh, my gosh. The shouts of racism would have been everywhere. It's so amazing, what we're seeing. It's like a return to the 1960s, only those people in 1960s probably had a little bit more to actually protest about. These people come from wealthy families and probably just don't want to go to class. And again, it could be that some of these people have parents who are so far left that this is just a wonderful opportunity for the parents to live through their children vicariously and do what they wanted to do, but what they had decided not to do because they were out earning money at $8.4 million a year. But yesterday, I wrote an article for The Blaze, and it's called Parents Be the Voice of Reason for the Students at the University of Missouri. And what I meant by that is, and here's how I started out. I said, this week in Missouri has been a tough one. We've watched as the careers of both the university president and school chancellor ended. First Amendment rights were violated. A potential battery was filmed. A suspect who threatened the lives of others was arrested. And it all began with a hunger strike. Am I talking about a scene from a weekly TV drama series? No. Talking about events at the University of Missouri where you send your kids and pay for their education from your hard-earned dollars. And my point was, parents, you're the ones who send these kids to school. You're the one who pays for their education. If you really wanted to do something about it, if you really want to be the voice of reason and you don't like what you're seeing, then pull the plug. Don't send any more tuition money. Don't send any money for them to live off of in their private dorms. I'm sure most of them are living in private dorms or wonderful apartments off campus there. Stop sending that. Tell them, okay, you either go back to class or you can go to another school, not receive money, go out and get a job. There's a thought. Or you can come back home, but I'm not paying for this crap. There are people in that school who really want to be there to go to class, but see, they're not able to do that anymore because most of the classes so far have been canceled or postponed, whatever you want to call them, for a little while until all of this sort of settles down. Because after all, like the student body president, the guy that everybody elected because he's like the best, well, he made up a lie about the KKK being on campus. So we have to close everything down because we have to protect everyone. And the ironic thing about this is that, here we give this Melissa Click another chance because, she gave up her courtesy appointment. but she's still employed there, and she apologized. So we can accept that, right? But what we can't accept is a president and chancellor of the university who didn't do anything wrong, that has been reported at least, wasn't given an opportunity to correct anything that maybe was a concern to the parents, I don't know, but certainly was a concern to the students in their own minds. He wasn't given an opportunity to rectify anything. Oh no, he had to go. Hi ho, the president's got to go. You know, I'm sure there was some type of chant like that during a protest somewhere on campus. So, you know, what's behind all of this? Something seems to be going on a lot more than what we're seeing. And then I saw something yesterday in a university in New York. They were trying the same thing. And when I wrote this article, too, one guy's comment was, oh, if we listen to this woman, meaning me, then we're going to go back to the 1950s where we have separate drinking fountains. And these people, you know, basically these people have to get out there and protest or nothing will ever change. Well, you know, I don't know who this person was, but first of all, this is a university. We're not talking about something where Dr. Martin Luther King, when there were justifications for actions like that. These are university lives where people are getting paid by their parents to be sent there in the best possible conditions. You know, you're not a starving student when your dad makes $8.4 million. I don't care how you look at it. If dad's paying for you to go to that university, you're doing pretty well. You're not eating at McDonald's or scraping up food someplace. You're getting fed pretty well. So let's not look at this as some civil rights movement that you're having to do because it's so important. This is your life for 4 years until you go on and become a lobbyist somewhere or do something like, you know, President Obama, organizer. There you go. That's what you're in training for right now. And you're making something bigger than it needs to be. You know, I suggested that why didn't these parents, if this was so horrible on this campus and racism was so out of control, the parents could have requested a meeting with the president and the chancellor. Parents could have gotten together with other parents, requested a meeting with the chancellor or the president. Or they could have said, we want an open forum. They could have written letters. They could have gone to the media. They could have done anything. But no, these people at the University of Missouri decided, I don't know, tests are coming up, so let's figure out what we can do to try to turn things upside down because we don't have anything to do. I mean, that's the way I see it. Again, I don't know if there were true problems there, and at this point, nobody's going to really care if there were true problems anymore because of the way that these people are conducting themselves. You know, note to self and everybody who's listening, if you really have an important cause, one that you really feel adamant about, look at Baltimore, look at the University of Missouri, and make a note. This is not how you conduct yourself to get things changed. You don't have to protest. You don't have to riot. I know people say, oh, well, you know, we've talked so long and it's now we're finished talking. We want action, whatever. It's not going to work. You would be better off going back and sitting down and just having a group of people, you know, who come forth and go to the chancellor, go to the president, go to whomever and say we want changes. You know, your dollar matters more than anything else. I mean, in this case in Missouri, the reason that the president stepped down is because the football team said, hey, we're not going to play if you don't leave. And there was money involved, a lot of money. And I'm sure people said, hey, it's time for you to step down because we don't want to lose our money. So you're just basically giving in to people with unreasonable demands, acting disrespectfully to everyone, their parents, the school, the community, themselves, other people. And, you're going to see more and more of this. I mean, it's just going to be a trend. It's going to be, again, right back to the 1960s, only there isn't a real reason for this other than let's just make noise. I mean, the president has helped in this because of his attitude and his sentiment towards things like this. And, we're going to just see an increased amount of schools around our nation doing the same thing. Students who just say, well, it worked for the University of Missouri, so let's do it here. So prepare yourselves. And my solution is close the school down. Who cares? I mean, really. If you don't have schools for them to go to, then they'll just go someplace else, I'm sure. But at least they won't be able to do it on college campuses. If an education doesn't matter anything at all to you, then maybe you shouldn't go to get an education. Just have your parents who are making $8.4 million a year just take care of you for the rest of your life, and you can go around and go in your community and just be activists in your community. Enough already. And have you noticed that since this has been happening, how much have you seen in the news in regards to Syria and Russia and what's happening there? It's dropped off the map for the most part. So it's kind of one of those things. If we can just keep this going here and everybody's involved in what's going on here in the United States, we won't see what's going on in other countries that are affecting us. Like, for example, that Iran has stopped taking down their nuclear weapons like they said they were going to, and that Iran nuclear deal that everyone knew was going to be enforced. Right. So we haven't really heard anything about that. We're really not talking about so much about the plane that blew up in Egypt that ISIS claims that they are responsible for. We haven't really heard too much of that. Very little, because we're so busy with the University of Missouri. Enough. Seriously. Let's just go back to looking at the important things. Let's go back to seeing what's really going on and being aware of things that are really important. This thing in University of Missouri and other places that are going to happen, these are just distractions to keep you and I off of what really is going on and the things that we really should be looking at. Will we have to deal with these things? Yeah, because they're going to become such an irritant, and it's going to spill over into other things. And that's exactly the plan of this administration, to have that happen so that you'll be so involved in that you won't see what else that they're doing and you won't question them. We don't have time for Hillary. We don't have time for her emails anymore. We don't have time for Benghazi or anything else. All we have time for are the black spiritual spaces at University of Missouri. And on a subject that's kind of similar, we have a lot of talk these days about millennials and how we should talk to them and how we should approach them, what we can't say, what we can say, and all that type of thing. Probably there's been every generation we've had something like that. But it just seems to me that we are really going overboard in trying to reach millennials in some strategic way, that you can't just talk to them anymore as one human being to the other. You have to come up with a strategy to approach them. You're not allowed to say anything about religion and about God because they don't want to hear about it. I've heard people say that, actually. You can't talk to them about Ronald Reagan because they don't know who Ronald Reagan was. And you can't talk to them about the good old days in America because they don't know what that was like because they've only known this time in America. Well, my solution to all of that is we've got to stop treating everyone with kid gloves. I mean, we have raised a nation of children and continue to raise them this way. I mean, some of them have not accepted it and they've said, well, I'm not going to be that way. But it's like everything revolves around them. And I think when you do that, you create a society that says, well, you must address me this way. You must talk to me this way if you want to reach me. Otherwise, I won't listen. Whatever. Where did we get off track? Well, we got off track a long time ago when we were told, put the children on the pedestal and start treating them that way. When you do that, you raise a group of children that see themselves as unique, superior, different, whatever. And it's great to give someone encouragement. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about, let's give another example, a close example, but not exactly the same. So I'm not calling millennials this, but get my point. When you have, let's say, a movie star in Hollywood, and you're always telling them how wonderful they are, you give them a special treatment. You don't allow certain people to talk to them. Only, those people that you want to interact with them will interact with them. You give them a special room that has everything in it that they've put on a list and saying that they need. In other words, you start treating them like they're a king or a queen. That never works out well. And we've been doing that for a long time now. We need to get back to the standards of, hey, there are a lot of wonderful things out there and a lot of wonderful people that need to be taken care of, and we're going to have you serve those people. And again, I'm not saying all millennials are this way, but what I'm hearing is this is how we should treat them. And everything is in 5-minute segments. If it's longer than 5 minutes, they don't want to listen. Well, whose fault is that? Well, society and parents have to be partially held responsible for that because, again, we've given them participation trophies. We've not allowed them to fail at all because, gosh, we just can't. It might hurt their feelings. We can't tell them the truth. It might hurt their feelings. We've got to stop treating people like that. We've got to get back to the days, and for those millennials who don't know about the good old days and don't want to hear this, you'll have to tune out for a moment. But we have to get back to the time when we served other people, when we weren't the most important person on the planet and everybody else was expected to revolve around us. And it's not just millennials either. There are other people that are feeling the same way about themselves. Maybe they're watching the millennials and that's how they're getting to that point. I don't know. But we're all guilty of doing that every now and then. And we need to just go back and start, or let's not even go back. Let's just start anew. Let's start looking at other people and saying, what can I do to help them rather than it's all about me, me, me. And let's face it too, baby boomers had to give up a lot of things. They no longer, by a lot of younger people, they're not respected. They're not called sir or ma'am. They're not listened to. In fact, a lot of people look at them as, oh, well, you have nothing to say because you're over 30. And that's kind of been what people have felt all along in whatever generation. But we have to stop doing that. Our older people have a lot to teach us. Our younger people have a lot to teach us. We all have a lot to teach each other, but we can't keep putting people, special groups, up on a pedestal. And I think a lot of it, that's our problems there in Missouri. I hate to go back to that, but it's a lot of our problems in Missouri. We have held people up and said, you know best because you are superior, because you are of a certain group, whatever that group is. It doesn't work. It's not good for America. It's not good for anyone. And I've also heard other things too about millennials since I'm on the subject, that they've been taught from the beginning and in their public schools under left-wing progressive ideologies that it's all about the collective. The individual no longer matters. So it's kind of difficult to see how we got from it's all about we and not about I to basically being it is all about me. I don't know how we made that leap, but it certainly has happened. And we need to go to a point where we're saying it isn't always about the we. And that's how we've gotten millennials to so accept socialism, because they're not taught that the individual is very important and should be nurtured in regards to, education or, making things, being experts, whatever the case may be. But we have got to stop treating people as though that they're the only thing that matters. And as baby boomers have gotten over the fact that people don't respect them as much anymore, millennials are just going to have to get over the fact that not everybody is going to talk to you and treat you in the manner that you want to be treated. You're going to have to adjust. You're going to have to say, well, I guess that I'm going to have to sort of get into the mainstream and just get along with everybody else and find my way like everybody else has. We spend so much time on revamping radio shows and TV programs and how we're going to reach them in the election. I don't know. Maybe we can't reach them. If they won't listen, then they won't listen. And maybe you're not going to be able to reach them at all. I hope that's not the case, because to some extent, every generation has felt that they're superior to every other generation. But this is the first time that I've heard, we've got to devise a way to reach these people. I've never heard that in any past generation, that we had to somehow talk to our children differently than we did everybody else. Maybe that's what Common Core is all about. Let's have a set of rules that are different for the children than the adults. I mean, gosh, it's not working. It hasn't worked. And it's a way to separate us. And I think millennials, they're very smart for the most part. So figure that all out. If you're in your own little category and people can only reach you by appointment and at a certain designated time, and they have to, when they come in, have X, Y, and Z before they... Come on. I'm exaggerating there, but you get my point. We need to be able to talk to each other, even in our own differences, without expectations of how the other person has to talk to us. No, we need to meet people where they are, and whatever level, whatever belief system that they have, let's meet them where they are, and let's grow and learn from each other and move forward together, not separate, together. And let's not make it where there has to be a special handshake or code to be able to get through to each other. That has to stop. We spend far too much time trying to figure out what's the key to this, what's the key to that. There's no key. It's human beings. If you want to look at the key, it's human beings treating human beings with respect. That's really what we've lost. And we need to, whether we go back to it or move forward to it, we have to get to a point where we respect each other and we listen to each other, even though we don't agree, even though maybe that person is not talking to us in the manner we would like to be talked to. And I don't mean disrespectfully. I mean maybe they're not talking in the exact same quote-unquote language that you are, but you can still understand them and still learn something from it. No group, whether it's baby boomers, millennials, or whatever, no group is superior to another group. And that's the point we have to remember. And hopefully, again, because millennials are so smart, that they would catch on to what's going on and just say, I'm not going to be that way. I'm going to start listening and start learning and start being in this world together with other people and moving forward. And again, I'm not bashing millennials. I'm just trying to point out some of the things that we're spending way too much time on when we don't need to be, and we shouldn't be. We should be spending more time on how do we serve one another and how do we get through to one another, even though we're different and unique individuals. It's okay to be different, and people don't have to talk to us in a certain way for us to understand them or for us to reach them. And then some news that, again, we're not really looking at because we're looking at so many other things that they want us to be looking at. The FBI expands its probe of Hillary Clinton's emails, launching an independent classification review. And what they're doing is they're exploring whether multiple statements violate a federal false statement statute, according to intelligence sources familiar with the ongoing case. This is in a Fox News report. They're looking at a specific code, U.S. Code 18, Section 1001, which pertains to materially false statements given either in writing, orally, or through a third party. Violations also include pressuring a third party to conspire in a cover-up. Each felony violation is subject to 5 years in prison. Well, I don't know. The Clintons have been through these type of things before. How many times have they been through this? And as I've said a number of times, Hillary always comes out landing on her feet. I don't care what you throw at her. They should call her Teflon Jane or whatever, because she just comes out on top every single time. So I don't know that this is going to have any impact. And again, we're so distracted by other things. Is anybody going to take note of it? And is this FBI really going to do anything, or is this kind of all talk and no do? Now, it says that this phase is an expansion of the FBI probe, which is also exploring potential violations of an Espionage Act provision, which relates to gross negligence in the handling of national defense information. Again, you would think that sending an email to your daughter after Benghazi about what really happened and then lying to the American public would be enough for most people. But it seems like the majority of Americans, if they ever even heard it or if they ever even cared, have sort of moved on. Benghazi to them was never really important. It's something that happened. It's over. The guys are dead. Let's move on. Not to the majority of us, I would say, who really care, who still care. But other Americans just aren't that interested. So the section of the criminal code being explored is known as statements or entries generally, and it can be applied when an individual makes misleading or false statements causing federal agents to expend additional resources and time. There you go. I mean, now we've probably boiled it down to money. You cost us money. We want you to acknowledge that, and we're looking to get that money back somehow, some way. So is money going to silently exchange hands here so that we can reach a settlement so all of this will go away? Nothing would surprise me. Nothing. And again, the FBI is saying that Section 1001 could apply if Clinton, her aides, or attorneys were not forthcoming with FBI agents about her emails, classification, and whether only non-governmental records were destroyed. So it seems like there could be a quick fix here. And according to the Fox News analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano, he said that the same section got Martha Stewart in trouble with the FBI. Well, that was Martha Stewart. She wasn't a Clinton. And he points out, though, that, to be a violation, the statements don't have to be given under oath. Well, again, the Clintons are used to this type of thing. And it says here, too, that 2 U.S. government officials told Fox News that the FBI is doing its own classification review of the Clinton emails, effectively cutting out what has become a grinding process at the State Department. Well, yeah, because, when you ask for information and you don't get information, or then you do get information and are told, well, gosh, we gave you that, or, well, here's something else we found. I mean, come on. You know how this game is played. As an attorney, when we used to ask for information like that on a subpoena, you would get bits and pieces, and then some more would trickle in later, and then a little bit, basically you're having to redefine your strategy all the time. You're having to redefine all the information and recalculate it so you can figure out where you're going, and by that time it's time for trial or something. It's ridiculous. It's meant, in my opinion, to confuse and to sort of hide information. Not saying the Clintons did it, but I'm saying that's typically what you see. You're sort of inundated with information that really has nothing to do with anything, and then you've got to go through all of the stacks of information, and then by the time you get down to the real information, you figure out that that's not really there. Then you've got to go back. It's an ongoing crazy circus is what it is. And we've been watching, in my opinion, we've been watching that circus here with the Clintons, and Hillary Clinton specifically, trying to get her emails. I mean, how hard is it? You either have it or you don't. First, oh gosh, everything got wiped out. Oh, what do you mean? Like with a rag? Are you talking about that? I mean, come on. We weren't born yesterday. But, apparently, again, maybe to her we were born yesterday, and it's working for her for the most part. So we'll see where this goes. I'm not even going to hold out hope because, I mean, how long has this been going on now? And it's certainly not doing anything, I don't think, necessarily to hurt her in the polls. Every time you turn on the TV, and again, I know these things are staged or they have the right people there and the people that are just so pro-Hillary. But when you turn on the TV, I mean, you see the crowds there with her, although the crowds have been lessening. And people are just cheering every time she says something. She can sit there and talk about how great it is for the veterans at the VA hospital and how they've told her, oh, gosh, Hillary, we love the VA. And when it absolutely isn't true. We all know that. And if we don't know that, we'd better hurry up and find out. I mean, how much more money is the VA going to give out in bonuses before we realize that the money isn't going to the veterans? Just the other day, there's another thing that's not really mentioned in the news. We just gloss over it. I didn't even hear it anywhere on the mainstream media, so I can't say it's really been in the news other than on things like USA Today. But the Veterans Affairs paid out $142 million in bonuses amid the scandals in the VA. Think about how much money that is. And how many people should have been fired that weren't fired. Now, I'm sure they'll probably say, oh, well, it's for morale. We need to ensure that we keep the best or keep the ones that we have at least. And we want to have other people coming here that know how great it is. Well, if you want people to know how great it is, then take care of the veterans. That's all I care about. Take care of the veterans. Quit pulling rank on these veterans, if you will, by controlling the purse strings to the VA hospital and the kind of care they get. It is appalling. I've talked to so many veterans, and it is appalling to find out how long they wait for an appointment. And some of them don't even get an appointment. They die before they get the appointment. Or how long they have to wait on the phone just trying to set an appointment. Or how they would like to go to somebody who's outside of the VA because they're not getting the care in the VA under the choice program, and yet they're denied the ability to do that. Or how many veterans who need psychological care just get a pill instead, or should I say pills? Because they usually don't get one prescription, they get many. So they're taking multiple prescriptions at one time. And I've talked to these people personally. I know. And we're handing out bonuses of $142 million. Here's what you do. You take the director, you get a new director, you pay that person a little bit less because obviously the ones that have been paid this huge amount of money, they're not doing the job. So let's get them out. And I'm really specifically talking about Veterans Affairs Secretary Robert McDonald. Let's get him out. Is he doing his job? Is he doing what he said he was going to? How many people have actually been fired? You can't make these numbers up. They either were fired or you transferred them to other departments or they left. Fired means you went in and said, you know what, you're not doing your job well, out you go. That's what you do. That's what it means. And then, the VA rewarded executives who managed construction of a facility in Denver. I don't know if you know anything about that construction, but it has been a disastrous project for the VA. I mean, it's been years overdue and more than, this is according to the USA Today, more than $1 billion, billion with a B, over budget. I mean, does that not sound like something out of the Obama administration that would just be singing and dancing in the streets for how great it was? I mean, seriously. And so you're going to give somebody that type of reward for doing a horrible job. But again, we won't talk about that in the mainstream media because, that's just not that important. Even though we had Veterans Day this week, it's not really that important. We'll talk about what's going on someplace else. Unbelievable. And then another thing that was just totally avoided in the news. Here's the headline. The VA can't seem to fix a computer glitch that's denying health care to 29,000 combat vets. And that was in the Huffington Post. all places that you wouldn't expect to see it. But again, I didn't see it on my news. I didn't see it on the local news. I didn't see it on the national news on TV. I saw nothing about that. And according to the report, it's been 7 months since top officials at the Department of VA, that would be also Bob McDonald, learned that tens of thousands of combat vets were being denied VA health care enrollment because of a computer system error. Gosh, does that sound like Obamacare or what? And that's an excuse. Okay, we have a computer error. Sorry, we can't do anything by hand. We're not going to go ahead and process you. We're not going to think of something else. We're not going to try to find a temporary solution. No, we're going to wait until we get everything in our old, antiquated, no good system, maybe. Maybe an exaggeration. I don't know. But you can't process 29,000 people. I mean, you've got all of that money for bonuses. You had $142 million to hand out bonuses. Why don't you fix the computer system so that the veterans can get care? Hey, there's an idea. Now, the Huffington Post says they reported back in August, again, nobody heard about it, that more than 35,000 combat veterans were missing out on health care because their applications had been mistakenly flagged as pending simply because they didn't complete a so-called means test, which assesses their household income. Wow, I didn't know that for the VA, in order to qualify for benefits as a veteran, you had to pass some type of means test, that your income level mattered all that much. I mean, yeah, I guess there's a 1 or 2 millionaire veterans out there, but I think the majority aren't. I don't know, just a guess. And it says here many vets have to submit to a means test to enroll in the VA health care, but not combat vets who are automatically, get that? I mean, I know people don't understand that word in the VA, but automatically eligible for free insurance for 5 years after their discharge. So what's the problem? Combat vets, stamp the paper, here's your card, go get some benefits. What in the world do you need a computer for to help you figure that out, to process something? You know, again, if your computer's not working, the guy comes up, here's my paperwork, I'm a combat vet, okay, here you go, let me just rubber stamp that, now go get your benefits. This is just excuse after excuse after excuse from the VA why nothing is being done. And I know I've said this millions of times before, and you're going to get sick of hearing it, but the VA system has been this way since I was a kid and before then. You can't keep putting a Band-Aid on a system that simply does not work. It doesn't work. Same with Obamacare. That system doesn't work. It's got to be replaced. I don't know about you, and this is veterans aside for a second. But I don't know about you, but under Obamacare, has your insurance rate in private insurance increased like threefold since Obamacare came into being? I went from a PPO that was amazing for about $100 and something a month, maybe a little bit more, to a crummy HMO for, I think it was over $300 a month. This is for my husband and myself. To a HMO now that costs, for the same HMO, $840 a month. I mean, it's amazing. And of course, we all know they want to go to the single payer system, where the government, and you can see how well the government runs everything. You want to know what it's going to look like under a single payer system? Ask a veteran. They'll tell you exactly what it looks like. It's horrible. It doesn't work. And, I want to hear presidential candidates all day long. Donald Trump's the only one I've heard so far, talking about how they're going to fix the VA, what they're going to do. But I want to hear them talking about how they're going to fix it for everyone, because nothing is working. Anything that the government has their hands on, it doesn't work as well as when you privatize it. It just doesn't. It's factual. Look it up. Look at history. And I know, again, we don't look at history anymore because we don't want to know anything in the past. Well, you know what? It's time to get your head out of the sand and start looking at stuff. Because we're slipping down that slippery slope even faster now. And somebody has to step up and be that voice of reason and say enough is enough is enough. It's scary, folks, out there. It really is scary. The candidates that we're having coming up, like Hillary and Bernie Sanders, for God's sakes, on the left. And don't be surprised. You know, Al Gore may slip himself in there eventually. I think I heard that he's not endorsing Hillary right now. Well, I think the only reason that you wouldn't do that, because he's not going to endorse Bernie, although he's probably more of a socialist than Bernie ever dreamed about being, but is to leave it open just in case Hillary doesn't land on her feet this time. Old Al will be there to help out. You know, I could be the next president. I was denied in 2000 or whenever it was with a hanging Chad, but I'm here now. Uncle Al is here to serve his country. And I'm going to take climate change to a whole new level. If that happens, oh my gosh. You know, it's bad enough that we still have Jeb Bush hanging on. And Jeb Bush has so much money in the coffers for this presidential bid that it wouldn't surprise me that he's hanging on to the very last second. Why get out? You've got all that money to spend. Even though you're looking like, oh my gosh, just totally incompetent. Is anybody out there... wait, excuse me. Let me start again. Hola. Is anybody else out there for Jeb Bush? Because we can't forget Jeb always says hola. Who in their right minds would vote for this man? I mean, what has he said that would convince you? I really want to know. What has he said that just calls for you to go out and vote for him as the next president of the United States because he's going to lead the way? Honestly, I haven't heard anything yet. Mr., I'm pro-Common Core to the core. I don't know what he could do other than damage what's already been done further. But somebody's got to step up here. We've got to get somebody to step up who says this is the way that things have to be done because we're in dire straits here. We don't need a single payer system. We don't need the government running everything. We need to go back to a smaller government where we can economically boom again, as we did under Reagan. We have got to be able to do that. I don't know if it's possible. I really don't know at this stage where we've been dragged down so far in the past 6.5 years that if we can turn it around. But you know what? I have faith in America that if anybody can do it, it's America. Because Americans are different. Or at least they used to be. But the people I know are still the ones who are those people who go out and say, I'm going to do it myself if nobody else is going to do it. Those hard-charging people. But we can't continue to keep everyone on the government dole. We are destroying lives by doing that. We're really not helping people to just continue to have them be dependent on the government. That just causes a lack of self-esteem, a lack of motivation, a lack of ingenuity, on and on and on. We can't destroy the great people of the United States like that anymore. And for those who are out there on those benefits because you absolutely have to be, because you physically, mentally are challenged in that way and can't hold down a job or whatever the case may be, this doesn't apply to you. But it applies to those people that are able-bodied, who are mentally able to go out and work. We need to get those people back on a path that shows them that it's better to be working and to achieve something than to have it handed to you. And that's why with these participation trophies and things like that. Stop it. Stop it. You are not helping your children. You are teaching your children that they don't need to earn anything in order to get something. The only thing that you don't need to earn in order to get something in return is love. Other than that, you need to earn everything else. God's love, parents' love, somebody else's love. You don't have to earn that. It should be given unconditionally. You may be disappointed in people's behaviors, but that doesn't mean you stop loving them necessarily. You get my point. But you can't keep spoon-feeding people and expecting them to want to thrive and achieve and to have a better life, to develop something. We have got to stop doing that to people. And I also want to give you a little bit of news from California that you'll never hear because no one wants you to know the dirty little secret. And the dirty little secret is this. We have supposedly a water shortage in California, and I don't doubt that because they've never built reservoirs to keep the rainwater that we do get. Nothing's to hold it. It just goes right back into the ocean, okay? So they decided, well, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to have them conserve. Californians, as much as everybody doesn't really sometimes like California, Californians really can conserve. You ask them to do something like conserve water, by gosh, they're going to go out there and they're going to conserve water. And that's exactly what they did. Very much so. So much, in fact, that now they're going to raise the rates because California conserved too much water. Doesn't that just make a lot of sense to you? And I know you're going to say, well, that's just California. No. We have to stop thinking like that, too. What happens in California now is just the beginning. You're going to see it everywhere. They're going to start doing that other places. They're going to ask, people to conserve water, gas, whatever. And then they're going to just go ahead and raise the rates. And while Californians may not like the fact that they were screwed over, they're not going to really do anything about it. They'll go ahead and they'll just pay the rates. And in fact, there are some counties in California that used to have a tier level, 1 through 4. And you were allotted so much use on like tier 1, and then it got a little bit more expensive in tier 2, and a little bit more expensive in tier 3, and then tier 4, man, you were paying out the nose because it just meant you were a water waster. Well, what they've decided to do is they're going to get rid of tier 3. Because now you're going to go 1, 2, you're going to hop right to 4, and you're going to be paying much higher rates. And they're even starting to do that with gas. The gas that you get, gas and electricity in your home. Just eliminate the tier and go right to the higher price. Why does this happen? Well, for reasons that can't be explained, but they can be. The administration, they won't allow you to have the Keystone Pipeline. We can't drill for oil here in the United States. We can't look for... All we can do is solar. That's it. And then there are instances where if you get solar energy, now the gas company's thinking about maybe penalizing that because you got solar instead of using the gas. That's a rumor. Don't know how accurate that is, but would not surprise me. Would not surprise me at all. And then, since we're on California, here's something that you won't really hear in the mainstream media. This is from a report from Breitbart, and it was at the beginning of the month. Republican leaders in California have called for an investigation into Governor Jerry Brown in response to a story by the Associated Press that suggested he may have misappropriated state resources to search for oil on his family's private property. Wait. So we don't like drilling here in the United States, and we don't do that because we're going to continue to pay money to Saudi Arabia and be beholden to them. But we have Jerry Brown, who may, and I don't want to say he did because I had allegedly misappropriated state resources to search for oil on his family's private property. State experts, according to Breitbart, say that state experts with the California Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources produced a report providing a geological assessment plus a personalized satellite image geological and oil and gas drilling map for the area around Brown's family ranch land near the town of Williams. Now, if memory serves me right, Williams, I believe, is in Arizona. Could be wrong about that, but not really. Doesn't say whether it's Williams, Arizona, or whatever. But anyway, wouldn't that be interesting? This is the last term for Brown, and gosh, we are in trouble with water, and we need to conserve, and we need to do this, and we need to do that, coming from Jerry Brown. But he's maybe misappropriating funds. And will anybody care? Now, former state assemblyman Tim Donnelly said, if using state resources and a state agency as a concierge in pursuit of oil, the same oil exploration that he has used to discourage elsewhere, if that's not illegal and an abuse of power and your position, I don't know what is. It's the height of hypocrisy for him to be essentially stealing the use of state resources that should be at the behest of those within the industry for his own personal financial gain when he uses the same agency and environmental laws to penalize his potential competitors. I think the king's been in power too long. Amen, brother. But again, who knows if anything will come out of this other than perhaps a simple fine or how much did you use? Okay, we'll just pay it back and we'll let it go. Unbelievable hypocrisy. And again, we can't just look at that and go, oh, it's California and shake our heads. No, it's not. And you know that. It's all over, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, under this administration, if you thought it was bad under Clinton when he said, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Monica Lewinsky, and if you thought that set a bad example, oh my gosh, the last 6.5 years will have an impact that will go on for another 20 or so years. I mean, or probably, that's probably a low estimate. Maybe 40 years. I don't know. Oh, my gosh. So don't be surprised if nothing comes out of this because the precedent has been set by this administration. And it continues to thrive in this world every single day. People are doing things that 20 years ago you would never have thought people would do in business and elsewhere. And sadly, our top government leaders are what set the precedent for the country. And it has to, again, that has to stop. We got to quit looking at government as our God because they're not. We need to go back to looking at who our God really is and listening to our parents and finding our role models in real people. If you can do anything to help your children today, that would be one of the things. Start teaching them properly again. Stop letting the schools teach them. Stop letting the government teach them. Be their role model, which you are already. And you can only give that position up when you turn it over to somebody else. It's yours to lose. So don't do it. Become your child's role model again. Set the standard that you want them to have for the rest of their lives. Teach them why they shouldn't look at Hollywood stars, at rap singers, at country music singers, at any singers, actors, Hollywood, those and government. Those people should not be who our children look up to. It should be real people doing real things. People like our veterans and protecting our freedoms in this country. People, hard-working people who go out and make a difference. Volunteers who give their time to worthy causes. Those are the heroes of our country. Those are the people worth looking up to. And we need to instill this in our children so that they will always have this as the basis to move forward in their own lives. It will take time to start things up again in the right direction, but it's time worth the effort. So until we meet next time, I'm sure there's going to be a plethora of new news. Some things you're going to hear on the mainstream media, some things that you won't. Hope to be able to bring you those things and give you a perspective that will help you understand what's really going on and what's behind a lot of what you've seen. If you'd like to contact me with any questions or with any comments, you can reach me at SUSANKnowles.com. I so appreciate your being here, and until next week, God bless you. I'll see you then.